Emma Carter walked into Hazel and Pine on a chilly Portland evening with only one goal in her mind: to escape the noise inside her heart. She had spent weeks trying to find a feeling of calm, but nothing worked. Her apartment felt empty, her office felt too loud, and the streets felt cold. She wanted one quiet moment, a space where she could breathe without pretending she was okay. That was why she pushed open the cafe door just 10 minutes before closing time, hoping no one would notice her. But the moment she stepped inside, everything changed faster than she expected. The cafe was small, warm, and filled with golden lights that made the wooden tables glow. It smelled of cinnamon, warm bread, and fading laughter from the conversations that had already ended. Emma thought she would slip into a corner unseen. Instead, she felt the weight of several eyes turning toward her: soft eyes, curious eyes, eyes that didn't judge but definitely noticed. She took one slow step inside, unsure if she should stay. There were 3 men inside, each in a different part of the room, and all 3 looked up the moment she entered. Not in a harsh way, not in a way that made her uncomfortable. Their attention felt strange but warm, like stepping into sunlight after being in the cold. She didn't know them, they didn't know her, and yet there was an almost invisible pull in the space between them. Emma hesitated, holding the strap of her bag tightly, trying to understand the sudden shift around her before she could turn back toward the door. Marla, the owner of the cafe, appeared from behind the counter. Marla was in her late 60s, with kind eyes that always seemed to understand things long before people said them. She gave Emma a look that felt like an invitation and a hug at the same time. "You look like someone who needs something warm," Marla said in a soft voice. Emma opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She simply nodded. Marla pointed to a table in the center of the room, a cozy spot surrounded by the 3 men in a triangle-like shape. Emma wasn't sure why she didn't choose a seat near the exit. Maybe she was too tired to overthink. Maybe the warm lights were pulling her in. Or maybe a part of her was done running from people and from her own feelings. She sat down quietly. 1 breath. 2 breaths. Her heartbeat slowly started matching the calm sound of the espresso machine as it cooled down for the night. Marla placed a cup of chamomile tea in front of her without asking for an order. "It helps people slow down," she said with a soft smile. Then she walked back to the counter, leaving Emma alone with her thoughts and the slow warmth rising from the cup. It didn't take long for Emma to notice that the 3 men were still watching her, but not in a heavy way. It was almost as if they sensed she needed a quiet moment, and they didn't want to disturb it. They weren't talking to each other. They didn't know one another. They were simply sharing the same space as strangers who suddenly found themselves connected by a moment. None of them saw coming. Emma took a sip of tea, and the warmth reached her chest, melting the tightness she had been carrying all day. Her eyes traveled around the room naturally, almost as if she wanted to know what kind of people would silently surround a stranger with that much attention. The first man sat by the window. His name, as she would learn later, was Luke. He had a gentle face, the kind that people trusted without thinking. His dark sweater looked well worn, his book was open but forgotten, and his calm expression carried the weight of someone who had lived through storms and quietly learned to survive them. He didn't pretend not to see her. He simply acknowledged her presence with a soft nod, as if saying, "You're safe here." The second man sat near the counter. Daniel. He had headphones resting around his neck and a laptop open in front of him. He looked like someone who stayed busy to avoid thinking too much. But when Emma walked in, he had taken his headphones off immediately, as if her presence shifted the noise inside him too. His eyes were warm and observant, the kind that noticed small details, like the way she held her cup or the slight shake in her fingers. His look held quiet empathy. The third man, the one closest to her, sat only a few tables away. Cole. There was something different about him, something that didn't feel like coincidence. He didn't stare. He simply watched her with a softness that felt almost familiar. His face showed patience, understanding, and a quiet strength that didn't need words. Something about him felt steady, like a place she could rest without falling apart. Emma wasn't used to being noticed. Most days she blended into the background of her own life. Yet here she was, sitting in a warm cafe, with three strangers unknowingly giving her the attention she had long forgotten she deserved. She didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or quietly let the moment hold her. Marla walked by again and touched the edge of Emma's table. "You have a story in your eyes," she said. "Some people walk in with noise. You walked in with silence." She didn't say more, but Emma felt the words settling deep inside her. She didn't know what story she carried any more in Lee, that she had been avoiding it. As she sat there, the cafe grew quieter. The world outside grew darker. The lights inside felt softer, almost magical. And Emma felt a warmth building in her chest, not from the tea, but from this strange sense of belonging she hadn't felt in years. Luke closed his book gently, but instead of leaving, he rested his hands on it and listened to the hum of the room. Daniel finished typing something, closed his laptop, and stretched his shoulders. Yet he stayed seated. Cole leaned back slightly, his gaze staying steady, watching her not with curiosity, but with recognition. As if he understood something she hadn't shared yet, Emma wondered if it was possible to be surrounded by silence and still feel understood. She wondered if the universe was trying to tell her something. If this cafe was meant to be her pause button in a life that kept demanding she move faster. For a moment, she forgot about the stress waiting for her outside. She forgot about the unanswered emails, the loneliness of her apartment, and the breakup that had cracked her heart not long ago. She forgot about the expectations she could never meet. She forgot everything except the warmth around her, the tea, the lights, the strangers, and the quiet comfort of being seen. She didn't know why she felt so connected to people she had never spoken to. But sometimes connection doesn't need a reason. Sometimes a room is enough. Emma watched the steam rise from her cup as if it carried a message she wasn't ready to read. She didn't know which man she would eventually talk to. She didn't know which one would shape her story. She didn't know which one would stay in her life longer than a single evening. All she knew was that she didn't feel alone, not tonight. The cafe clock ticked softly, and Marla changed the sign from open to closed. Normally, customers would start packing their things. Normally, a closing cafe would empty. But tonight was not a normal night. None of the men moved, none of them stood. None of them broke the moment, as the lights dimmed slightly. The quiet between all four of them grew deeper, more meaningful, almost protective. Emma felt a soft pulse in her chest, a slow excitement building, not from romance exactly, but from something more important. Hope. She didn't want to leave. She didn't want to step outside and lose whatever this was, a warm, strange, unexpected moment that made her feel like she was part of a story again, not just a passerby for the first time in a long time. She didn't run away from the feeling. She stayed. She stayed because something inside her whispered that this moment mattered, that something was beginning, that one of these strangers might soon step forward and say something that would change everything. She thought she knew about connection, comfort, and love. Emma took another slow sip of tea, letting the warmth fill the parts of her that had gone cold over the years. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew her life had already shifted. And she had no idea that one of those men, quiet, steady, and waiting, was only moments away from breaking the silence. Emma Carter felt a quiet pulse in her chest as the cafe lights dimmed. The warmth from her tea had faded, but the strange calm she felt in that small room had not. It was a soft, growing awareness that tonight was not like other nights. She wasn't alone. She hadn't expected to be noticed, yet here she was, surrounded by three men she didn't know, carrying a different kind of attention, warm, respectful, and almost protective. For a long time, she had avoided noticing people or letting them notice her. But tonight was different. Tonight, she felt visible, not because of words, but because of presence. The clock on the wall ticked toward closing, but none of the men moved. Luke, the man by the window, remained in his seat, calm, with a quiet smile tugging at the corner of his lips, as though he already knew the story that was unfolding without a single word. Daniel, the one near the counter, kept his posture straight, his laptop closed, his hands resting on the table. His expression was steady but soft, like someone who had spent a long time learning patience and observation. Cole, closest to Emma, leaned back slightly in his chair, but his eyes never left her. He didn't intrude. He didn't ask. He simply existed near her, radiating a kind of stillness that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt for months. The cafe was silent now except for the low hum of the air conditioner and the gentle, quote, "king" of the clock. The world outside was quiet too, streets emptying into the night. Emma held her cup of tea and looked around, feeling the warmth in her chest expand slowly. She had not planned on this evening being anything more than a temporary escape from her thoughts. Yet something about the attention in the room drew her deeper into herself. She realized she wasn't afraid. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she had to defend herself. Then the moment broke, or maybe it began. Cole stood. Not abruptly, not in a way that demanded attention, but with a calm, respectful motion that suggested he was ready to speak. He stepped closer, slowly, without making her feel cornered or pressured. His dark eyes met hers with something honest, something rare, something that resonated deep inside her. "I'm sorry if we made you uncomfortable," he said softly. His voice was warm and steady, carrying no judgment, no rush. "Just simple concern." Emma shook her head, surprised by the honesty in his tone. "No, it's not that," she whispered, her voice catching slightly. She realized she had been holding her breath, afraid of what it would feel like if she allowed herself to be seen. But now that he spoke, it was easier to breathe. Cole hesitated for a moment, as though weighing his next words carefully. "Good," he said finally. "I didn't want you to leave. Not like this." Emma blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "Why?" she asked softly. Her heart was beating faster now, not with fear, but with curiosity and something tender she hadn't expected to feel tonight. Cole's eyes softened. "You walked in looking like someone carrying a lot," he said gently. "And I recognized it. I've been there." His words weren't dramatic or heavy. They were simple, quiet, true, and they landed in her chest like sunlight through clouds, warming spaces that had been cold for too long. Emma looked at him, noticing for the first time the subtle details, the curve of his shoulders, the calm steadiness in his hands, the way he didn't rush her or expect anything from her. She felt her chest tighten slightly, a mixture of emotion and relief. Luke and Daniel remained seated, quietly giving them space, almost like they understood that this was a moment that didn't need interruption. The air between Emma and Cole was different now. It was gentle, emotional, and charged with a subtle tension that wasn't physical, but deeply personal. It wasn't about attraction in a fleeting way. It was about understanding, about recognition, about the quiet acknowledgement that two people could see each other without words. Emma realized that she hadn't felt that in a long time, not even from friends or family. Tonight, someone had recognized her in a way that mattered. Cole took a small step back, giving her space. "You don't owe me anything," he said, "or anyone. I just wanted you to know you didn't have to leave without being seen." Emma felt a lump in her throat, not from sadness, but from emotion she hadn't allowed herself to feel in months. She nodded slowly, her lips curved in a faint, hopeful smile. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible. But it was enough. Luke, by the window, rose quietly and waved a small goodbye. Daniel offered a gentle nod and a faint smile before gathering his things and leaving. Emma watched them go, a feeling of gratitude settling over her. They hadn't said a word, yet their presence had helped shape this night. And now, with Cole remaining, Emma felt a soft sense of safety. She hadn't expected when she walked into the cafe. The moment stretched as the two of them remained in silence, connected only by the unspoken understanding that had begun between them. Emma felt her heart slowly unclenching as she allowed herself to exist, in the warmth of someone noticing her not for who she pretended to be, but for who she truly was. When she finally stood, ready to leave, Cole opened the door for her. The night air was cool, crisp, and filled with the faint scent of rain that had passed hours before. Emma felt the cold brush against her cheeks, and for a moment, She almost wished she could stay inside forever. Wrapped in the soft energy that had built in the cafe, Cole walked beside her, close enough to feel present but careful not to crowd her. "Would you like company for the walk?" he asked almost shyly. His question was simple, quiet, and filled with a gentle hope that mirrored her own. Emma thought about the lonely streets she often walked alone, the nights when the apartment felt too quiet, and the unexpected warmth she had found in the cafe. She thought about the way Cole hadn't pushed her, hadn't spoken too much, but simply let her feel safe while still being present. She nodded. "Yes," she said, "I think I would." Cole's lips curved into a relieved, soft smile. "Good," he said, and together they stepped into the night, side by side. Two people who had started as strangers but were no longer. The city lights reflected off wet pavement, and the gentle hum of the streets seemed to match the quiet excitement building between them. Neither spoke at first, and neither needed to. Emma felt the rhythm of his steps next to hers, steady and calm, like a heartbeat syncing with hers. She felt the air fill her lungs differently, lighter, freer. As though the act of being seen had opened a door she didn't realize she had closed. She realized that sometimes connection isn't built in words or grand gestures. It begins in quiet recognition and the choice to remain. To stay, they walked past familiar streets that now seemed new. Ordinary corners glowing with meaning because they shared them tonight. Emma's mind drifted, not in worry or sadness, but in quiet wonder. Who was this man? Why did he make her feel so calm yet so alive? Could someone really understand another person's silence in a way that healed them? She didn't know the answers yet, but she felt hope. The kind of hope that grows quietly, almost invisibly, until it becomes impossible to ignore as they walked. Cole glanced at her with a softness that made her chest tighten in the best way. "I'm glad you stayed," he said quietly. Emma smiled, feeling something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time, the beginning of trust. "Me too," she said. The night was silent around them except for the rhythm of their steps. She felt that this moment, fragile and tender, was the start of something important. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It wasn't a sudden declaration. It was slow, quiet, but undeniable. It was connection, and she had chosen it. Cole stopped at a corner almost reluctantly and looked at her. "Do you want to do this again?" he asked simply. Not the cafe necessarily, just talk, walk, whatever feels right. Emma considered the question. Normally, she would hesitate. Normally, she would analyze, doubt, retreat. But tonight, something inside her whispered to stop worrying, to allow herself to feel the warmth and safety of someone noticing her without pressure. She nodded. "Yes," she said. Cole's smile grew just enough to let her know he was quietly thrilled. "Good," he said again. And without another word, they continued walking side by side, letting the night stretch before them like a promised dot, as the city lights reflected in puddles from an earlier rain. Emma realized that sometimes being surrounded without a word wasn't frightening. Sometimes it was the exact invitation you needed to finally stop running and start noticing life again. And tonight, she had stayed. Tonight, she had allowed herself to be seen. Tonight, she had chosen to take a step forward, and that step simple, quiet, and entirely human felt like the beginning of everything she hadn't dared hope for in a long time.